Join us and help us continue to support the many talented people of our community. Learn how to get your business highlighted on Lacrosse Local. Go to lacrosselocal.com and click on Advertise. The Pump House Regional Arts Center brings you live, heartfelt performances from gifted singer-songwriters. Enjoy original music brought to stage by area mainstay musicians and sought-after regional bands. Check out the concert series online and pick up your tickets at thepumphouse.org. We talked with painter David Williams. We connected on his exhibition, The Street Less Traveled, presenting watercolors that showcase unusual views of the urban landscape and opening soon at the Pump House Regional Arts Center. You can find more conversations, food reviews, weekend picks, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
My name is David Williams. I was actually born down in Corpus Christi, Texas. I was part of a Navy family, so was all over the place when I was young and growing up. I don't know, it's possible that moving around was what led me into art a little bit, having to make new friends every time. And, the drawing and the coloring, the painting is always there. I think I started painting actually fairly young, 10 or 12 or something like that. I had a grandparent who was an oil painter, so I dabbled in oil paints for a short while and moved to acrylics when I got into high school, and then life intervenes. And it was a long time without making much art at all. And when I got closer to family moved on or whatever, then got back into art and ended up picking up watercolors on the advice of somebody, because I was still dealing with like 30-year-old acrylic paints, which weren't in the best shape, and I'm sure there's better quality acrylic paints now anyway, but slid over into working with watercolors and found I like that, and I've been doing that for maybe close to 15 years now, and also at that same time started to more regularly make art.
So, you kind of mentioned there, was it just like a mobility issue in some sense? Watercolors kind of breaks down the barriers in terms of being able to, you can get a whole palette of watercolors pretty quickly, not expensive. You can travel with them. You just like that sort of component, or did it have to do with some of your travel in your early life?
Well, I didn't really get into watercolors till I was no longer moving around, and those attributes you mentioned certainly can be big benefits. I do a fair amount of plein air now these days too. What I really got into it was, boy, the paints I have that I've saved over 30 years were so crappy that I go, maybe I don't like acrylic, and it really was more the the quality of what I had there. But it made it a good time to try out something different. And then, just like the way that it worked and moved and surprised you and kept going.
Just checking out your work today in the last couple of days, it's interesting to see your work. When I think of watercolor, I'm sure there's a lot of things that come to people's mind with landscapes. There's some themes in your paintings, that deal with everything that looks like, alcohol, potentially homelessness. You get into politics a little bit, it looks like. Where do those themes come from? Or that unique perspective using watercolor for that seems interesting to me.
It probably came about when, and I'm not directly delving into those things, but I acknowledge that there are pieces of those kinds of things that come out in some of my paintings. But I think it came about from, you start out and you do florals and, everything pretty, and that, that's probably what you're mentioning here, and landscapes, and there's fall trees, and picturesque little barn in the background. And after a while that I certainly did those, and people liked those, and at a certain point those weren't satisfying to me anymore, and I started to And I still do some landscapes. I don't do many florals anymore, but I also found that I was more attracted to, what's an unusual view of the landscape, and can I go down this creek and, go in a mile and find a shadier spot, and then started looking at the urban landscapes. And these alleys there's some interesting stuff going on here with just the items and the lighting and whatever. And although that's not a typical, here's a pretty picture to put on your wall, I found those to be more interesting. The other thing that I'm doing that you're mentioning a little bit was I got into a little bit doing surreal stuff. And those are the things that you're probably pegging as dealing with whatever loneliness or maybe some politics or whatever. Again, they're not directly related to that. I see surreal as sort of tapping into your subconscious and say, start with one image and then what follows, and you start tacking them together. And then a year later, I finally figure out what the heck the painting meant.
What I also noticed with that, because when I saw that sort of those themes, you referenced in some sense a lack of control with watercolors was symbolic of the lack of control in life.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where I actually wrote that, but I certainly have presented that at sometimes because that's sometimes how I feel, especially over the last couple of years and the lockdowns and things like that, is that there are certain things we can't do anything about, but you can still make something out of it. I mean, that's what happens with watercolor. You can't do a lot of erasing. You can't do a lot of covering up. You can do certainly a little bit of both of those. So you have to make do with what happens. And some of that is actually some of the most interesting parts of many watercolors is you go like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And oh, but you know what? I like it. I'm going to leave that.
You have the artist reception coming up March 3rd, and then your work will be up from March 1st through April 15th at the Pump House.
Right.
Show called The Street Less Traveled. What is that body of work? What is that from?
So that will be those urban landscapes. And so there won't be the surreal stuff I mentioned, whatever, but a lot of the back streets, there'll be some alley things. I'm still picking out the actual paintings that will be there. I'm trying to get the wall layout to find out exactly what can fit. But it's going to be unusual views of the city. So not just, okay, here's a painting of the Capitol building. I'm living in Madison, Wisconsin right now. Or, what's the pride of the city in painting that, building in all of its glory, instead of, okay, what if I could get a view of that building from an alley? Or what if I painted these fire hydrants that have been discarded and they're in a pile, and things along those lines. There's one piece that I think will be in, which is the feet of people. They're watching a show at a music festival or something. And instead of just, the people, it's down and here's their feet and things like that. So again, it's just a slightly different perspective. So I don't know, I just stopped being interested in doing the same things that everyone else was doing. And so that's a lot of what you're going to see is those unusual views, gritty views. I think they're still interesting and attractive, and I hope people can still find the beauty in them, even though the main place in a particular painting might be a back alley.
Do you have any advice for, a painter who's stopped, or someone trying to get into the game in some sense for them? It sounds like you had some transitions. You also had some moments of kind of pausing on it. Do you have any advice for maybe an up and coming painter or someone who wants to get into it later in life?
I think you've just got to do it. I mean, there are many short kinds of classes that, you can take a 3-day kind of class. They've got ones that are online or in person, and then find out what you like. because but when you take any of those workshops, and I've taken certainly a number of, I'm not formally trained in art, is that you get stuck in, well, they're using this color and this brush, and they're painting florals, so now that's what I have to do. It's great to pick pieces of that and say, okay, what do I like about what they're doing? So you need to start exploring, get some paints or pencils or whatever you think your media is going to do, and just start doing it and look around on the web, maybe take a couple of short classes, and then find what's working for you, because that's where you're going to really get going. You're going to be frustrated if you are trying to mimic somebody else.
Kind of perusing your website here, williamswatercolors.com, seeing under this street less traveled sort of the title here. I mean, even this image you have representing here, which is like I don't know if it's a water, not necessarily water main, but, pipes and that sort of stuff that's more you see on the street. It's almost photographic in some sense. That's definitely a different perspective. It's very neat.
Yeah. So I'm trying not to do stuff that's totally photo accurate, but to me, that's a key thing. Can you get something so people can look at it, know what it is, and then when you move closer, that's also fun to do and say, oh my goodness, it's not what I thought it was when I look up close. Flashes of colors and things. But yeah, that's what that one was sort of a water structure that was sticking out, actually out of the front of the building that is running water into a couple of storefronts, and the lighting and whatever just looked interesting to me, and said, I think I need to paint that.
If people want to check out your work before they head to the Pump House on March 1st, artist receptions on March 3rd, what's the best avenue for them to go to? Like, are you active on social media or just the website?
The website is the best place. I'm not the biggest social media person. I try to be, but the best place is to go to williamswatercolors.com. That has all of my paintings. It has mention of events such as the Pump House exhibit are on there, and other ones where I may be. You can sign up for my little newsletter. I put that out maybe once a month, so it's not very. I'm not bothering people much, but that's a way to put out a few of my thoughts each month, or show a couple of new paintings that I've produced. So I would go to the website.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.